It's very simple, you
Yeah,
just have to
yeah.
kind of run with the flow. Okay, can I have someone to make a motion to nominate Jeff?
I make a motion to nominate Jeff.
Thanks, Kelly. Now the vote, all in favor? Or sorry, I need someone second, sorry. Someone make a second the nomination.
I can second it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff makes second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kelly, Pepper. You wanna vote? Okay, that passes. So then the next thing, kind of homework is just to read the bylaws for the Housing Trust Fund. So the Housing Trust Fund is nestled under HCPA, the Hudson Community Development Planning Agency. And so since that board, they are technically the board that has like the real city power. So the mayor serves on that, the common council president, the two council members, the planning board chair and the housing authority chair. And so what's kind of nice about it is that they do the heavy lifting in terms of bookkeeping and cutting checks and stuff. And our role is to, we kind of create the budget, we give it to them to approve. Y'all make decisions about what do you want to fund, projects you want to focus on, and then each CPA has to be the one to approve any final decisions or anything. So our bylaws are included in their bylaws. So I will follow up with the link, so you guys can read them through. They're like 2 pages, so they're just good to know. And so their meetings are once a month at the end of the month. And so usually we meet the second week, so that if we have to vote on decisions about funding or something, then we can give that to the HCPA in time. And so on that note, when we make resolutions, we do need to have in-person quorums. So right now we have 6 members, so a quorum is 4. If you have an excuse like you're ill or like a work conflict and you have to attend online, that can count towards the quorum count. But if you don't have like an excuse like that, then being online, you can participate, but it doesn't count towards quorum. So, okay.
Is this gonna be our regular meeting the second?
If this works for you all,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
cool. The city calendar is pretty booked, but.
Yes.
So, if you guys want to move the time to 5 or 5:15 or 6, we can change, there's room for that, so.
That will be online, you said, moving forward or in?
No, we're
person?
meeting in person.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But if you guys want to move the time around, we can move it a little
I'm
bit.
flexible, 5 would work for me though.
It would?
Yes.
It would.
I'm flexible too, so.
Okay. I'll check with Usha.
Okay.
I would like 5. 'cause that's-
Yeah.
So I'll check with them. Okay. Kelly or Tepper, do you have any preference on the time?
I'm fine with 5 or 5:30.
Okay.
5:30 works for me, yeah.
Okay. 5 wouldn't work?
5 would work too.
Okay. Well, then I will propose with, I'll run it by Usha and Margaret, they can do 5, and then we
Okay.
can move it to them.
It's good.
Cool. Okay, so in your packet, I'll pull it up. Let's see. Is this housing trust fund overview? Sure. So Kelly, this is what you saw at the April meeting. I'll send it an email. It's really just like a run through of the operating procedures, the advisory committee, some accomplishments that Housing Trust Fund's done so far, and then includes our budget. The budget, so the important thing to know is that we began with the funds from the anti-displacement grant, which you're familiar with. And so we had seed funds of about 600,000 for the trust fund. And the plan was always to spend down the trust fund and then to add in city revenue through, at the time, we thought the cannabis tax was an idea or the lodging tax or some other funds. So we've been spending down and we're getting closer to like the bottom of the housing trust fund. We've got like 150, no, we got a little more, like about 200,000 left in there, but we haven't been increasing the funds. the way we had expected to. Partly because I think the cannabis tax and the short-term rental tax didn't bring in as much as the city thought they would. And then I think also there's just been a lot of change in politics, since 2020 and 2021. So one of the challenges and tasks for our board is like this year to think about what does that mean for the housing trust fund, that we're gonna be having a decreased budget with less revenue coming in. In the past, the city was putting in money each year. They were kind of increasing their amount, so 2 years ago, they put in, I believe, 30,000. I think 30 or 40. Something around there, but then
See,
last year they gave us like half of what they had been giving. So. Yeah, that's like a question for us to think about, is that bigger frame.
was there any this year or has it? It's not time yet.
It's not time yet.
Okay.
So typically we make our budget, we kind of draft it in July and finish it up in August, and then it goes to the city, and HCPA in September. So this gives us just a little bit of heads up to like, in the next couple of months, be thinking about it. And thinking about, I put in this like packet that I'll send again, some housing trust funds run in different models. So, we are unique in that we're such a small city that has one. Most like places that have housing trust funds are much bigger cities, and so they have a lot more revenue streams coming in. But Massachusetts does have a lot of housing trust funds in small towns. And one of the things a bunch of their towns do is that they spend building years, or they kind of build up funds. And then in like maybe year 5, they spend a big chunk of it, on say like, an example is like Great Barrington has a housing trust fund. And for like 4 years, they're just kind of getting 10,000 here, 10,000 there, whatever. And then year 5, they put in like $150,000 to purchase a plot of land for Habitat houses.
Okay.
And then the bank balance went back down, you know, so that's a way that some of the
That's-
small ones do it. What we have been doing, so the housing trust fund, was set up to fund my salary, and then the programs for each year. So the main program we've been doing is Hudson Roots, which is the rental assistance, fund. And that's been a really good program. And it's been working really well. We did give less this year because we got less money. Promise, we do it through Promise, and they did find other funding for this year, but it's not every year. So this is just kind of setting the stage, that this will be a conversation we come back to. And I'll kind of think of some ideas or ways we can think about this together. And it's not something we need to solve tonight.
When we do anticipate there will be less than level funding,
Yeah. Yeah,
particularly because of the budget issues that we, okay.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
the fund can't accept like HC, whatever, sorry, I never remember all the acronyms. Can accept funds on our behalf, or like as a like 501c3, or is that, I'm just like thinking about like, yeah, how funds besides grants, like can an individual make a donation or something?
Yeah,
We've talked about that once before, but we didn't get it going.
so my understanding is that, so our attorney is the HCPA attorney, Chris Shao. We can't solicit
Okay.
fundraising, but we can accept
We can accept,
donations.
Yeah.
So we had like gotten a couple donations from some of the local banks that were pretty small. But we can't do like a fundraising drive, you know? Cause
So
we're
we can let people know we exist.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, but like,
There's a way.
yeah,
but Greater Hudson, like someone else could do a drive
right,
for
and so that,
us.
Okay.
like, that was one of the things that like, cause Tom DiPietro was previously on the board, and he's like, okay, well, if we can't give as much money to Hudson Roots, we can help Promise, like, you know, or support them, and, you know, so there's like ways to kind of achieve the goals. But yeah, we can't directly
Understood.
solicit funds.
But that's just good. I
And
mean, that's good to know just because that's a loophole a little bit.
yeah, yeah. But I think on the point, Jeff, like, I feel like when we first created the Housing Trust Fund in like 2021, 2022, we did a lot of community engagement work and like events. And then I think it's, we've like decreased that over the past couple of years. And I think part of like having new folks on is like thinking about new ways to like go back to the community
Right.
and talk about, what we can do or, and also things we can do without a lot of money.
Everything.
Yeah, so on that packet, again, that I'll resend, there's like the budget for this year and, there is, most of it's figured out. The big thing is that, we do have a small line that we haven't really touched, like a small budget line, that is like kind of open for contingency to small projects. But in general, our main project has been Hudson Roots, so far. And then the other things like the committee has done, again, without really spending money, but for example, we did a lot of thinking about like zoning policy and they were thinking about the ADU policy, which, is now became law through the council and there's grants and stuff like that, so. There's other ways the committee can have impact without just having, money to spend. Okay, so then kind of the last thing, I wanted to go through was looking at goals for this year. Give me a second, see if I can pull this stuff up so that, people online can hear my screens.
Can you share your screen or is it?
Yeah, I am trying to.
Oh, okay.
Give me one sec.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. The city, like, we kind of share the, like, whoever does meeting shares the tech, and we all have different settings for it, so. Okay, Kelly, Pepper, can you see? Okay, great. So I want to just walk you guys through, so our comprehensive plan was adopted in the fall. And there's a whole housing section. And we can kind of think about what in here stands out to you as things that are really well, worth working on now and also kind of feasible that's like in our capacity to work on. So you guys have the copy there. Let's see if I can make this a little. Okay, so, again, I'll share this in email so you guys can look it over. But the big objectives were looking at our zoning code, increasing capacity, and then creating like an anti-displacement framework. So land use strategies updating our zoning code. Something important to know is that the city, so we got a grant, to do a rezoning. And right now I'm working on like the contract materials and stuff, but we're gonna be putting together like a committee to help guide the zoning update. And this is something that can be really impactful in thinking about how do we make it easier to develop or, do small ADUs or, kind of just make it easier for people to make housing. And so this is a way that I think our committee can be involved in thinking about some things for that. Similarly, like an affordable housing overlay idea of adding to the zoning. Basically, if you're doing affordable housing, it's easier to get things passed through, planning board, ZBA. And the form-based code is part of that, that's like a different zoning. So that's all that zoning.
Can I interrupt you a second?
Yeah,
Can you list for us, like, or at some point provide us the barriers, the zoning barriers that exist now,
Sure,
cause I think it'll help.
yeah. Kelly, do you wanna say anything about that? Like you work with some of this zoning barriers that exist right now?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, you can't have additional dwelling units, so in your if you wanted to build an additional dwelling unit like in your backyard or turn like your garage into an apartment, that's not allowed in our zoning, which as we know, like there's so many carriage houses and back buildings in Hudson, so that's like a whole housing stock that like we are missing out on.
So, yeah.
And then, I mean, in general, a lot of the fire code and like electrical code, I guess that's kind of different. But anyway, that's the main one that I know, Michelle. I don't know if there's like other ones that are.
Yeah, I think a big thing is that so we have like such a historic city, right? And it's like smaller buildings and denser, and it's very walkable. Our zoning code is from like, I think it's the sixties or the seventies, and it actually puts like a very suburban kind of framework. So think about, let's say there's like a lot on Columbia Street, and we're like, okay, we could get money to do a duplex there or something. The zoning code wouldn't actually allow you to do a duplex that matches all the other street, like houses that exist. It would kind of make you create this like skinny boxcar thing. Like the zoning code doesn't actually match what we have.
Understood.
Okay.
And so it requires like a lot of, or it kind of requires a lot of, like green space per dwelling unit. So let's say you wanted to maybe kind of like have a certain, maybe like a triplex and there's like a shared garden or something, it'd be like, no, there's not enough green space or whatever. So stuff that's like, there's good reasons for it, but then over time, it makes it just really hard to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Also, one other thing is like to have a zoning law that like if it's affordable housing, I remember we were talking about this, is like the historical zoning doesn't apply if you're building an affordable housing unit, because adhering to the historical board, or I don't even remember the name of it, is like actually really uh difficult.
yeah, we were just talking about that. Yeah, and I think people sometimes hear this stuff, and they think that like it could be like, oh, just put housing up everywhere, we don't care about how things look, but that's not really the case. It's like
Yeah.
the actual zoning doesn't match what people want, you know? Does that kind of help answer that?
No, it does. I wanted everybody else to, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm living some of it.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I mean,
But I think it's important, just to juxtapose to what we're looking at.
Yeah,
So we can understand how to maneuver.
and I think making it tangible for people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Understand. So yeah, so these are something that, again, doesn't cost us money, but something that we can think about and kind of put input into and also help out with like ways to make this more relevant. It's such a like jargony concept, so how do we make this something that like people can want to engage with and talk about, because it affects all of us, like the way the buildings we live in and stuff. So the next bucket on here is about capacity. I think this is a really interesting time to think about this. So thinking about the city, and I mean that in like lowercase c as well as capital C, is capacity to handle affordable housing issues, because the housing authority is going through this big redevelopment.
Right.
It's gonna kind of change some of your capacity and stuff. Galvin is changing as an entity.
Correct.
So I think that's an opportunity to change up or bring in more, you know, and, you know, thinking through the city, like, you know, what do we need to place here? So I think this is something, you know, for us to think about some things that are, some of these things are about for developers, like how to make it clear for developers to kind of do affordable housing, but some of it honestly is like thinking through if someone's looking for housing, like the best thing I can do is give them like 15 different phone numbers to call. And like that just takes up so much time for people. And to get on all those waiting lists, it's like, it's not simple. And so that's something else we want to think about, like how can we make, kind of pull what there is and make it easier for people to access information or potential housing and stuff. And I think also like having more conversation between and among like the different groups that do housing programming. Joni at Promise did a good job of like reaching out to all the different groups and like, hey, what rental systems do you have? What do you have? What are the rules? And putting together like one guide. But I think there's more we can do to make it, like if someone has a question about, I need help, we can make it easier for people to understand how do you access that. Hudson's vacant building law, this one is, we've talked about this a little bit. Something else, so we have a law that's on the books that basically asks the code department to make a inventory of all the buildings that are vacant. And then to, fine owners if they're not doing anything with the buildings. There's been a lot of challenges in actually implementing that. But one of the things is that the county has a housing task force. And they have a grant that's gonna be doing like a big study of vacant buildings in the county and thinking through different strategies to activate them so that if they're just like sitting there for no reason, like we can help get them back to be like maybe affordable housing. So that's something too where like this committee can kind of give some input into the county's study with that. And then this one, the anti-displacement framework is one of the most, it's more creative and a little bit harder to implement, but when you think about. There's like a adopted right to stay and return policy, which looks at people who are displaced from a city due to costs and like what would that mean to try and make it easier for them to get like priority housing. I think there's a lot of pros and cons to this. And when we made the comp plan, I was like, there's a lot of things to think about. Like it's really hard to, because Ravonda and I talked about this a lot. And one of the things that, we had thought about in the past was like, people don't want to be on a registry or a list or have to be like, or how do you prove that you live somewhere? It gets very complicated, but we just threw it on here as something that food for thought of like, how do we make sure that people get in the housing who need the most, who wanted to be in Hudson.
How do they get priority?
Right.
Preference?
And then there's also fair housing law.
Right.
Yeah. Community land trust creation, we can talk more about that. Future meetings about create permanent affordable long-term housing. And then these last two, the first one is thinking about financing tools to help homeowners and landlords make small rehab. So we've been getting some small grants from the state to do housing rehab projects for homeowners, and there's a new one for small landlords. The thing about these grants is that it's a lot of work to get them, and they're slow, and there's a lot of barriers, but like, are there ways that, and maybe this is one of the things of like thinking about how the capacity of like the new Galvin entity, whatever Bard's doing with that, like, can we kind of build up more capacity so that the right group has these grants running consistently? Or if there's a financing pool, it's like a revolving loan fund or something, because that's a big issue too, is that for homeowners or small landlords, the costs are so expensive. Any thoughts on that? I'm gonna pause for a second.
Yeah, I think it's something good to look at, and particularly have the other part of it is that you have difficulty getting somebody to actually do the work. All of those things come into play, so you
Right.
need to have the money ready when you do find someone.
Yeah,
So just trying to get a steady pipeline is
Right.
a good idea.
yeah. And the last one is thinking about how we can do more with education.
Right.
Part of the thing I'm thinking about too is that there's been so many new residents in the city. And I don't know lots of them, and like, how do we kind of reach out to the longtime residents and also newer residents about what are their needs, but also where are their gaps and people's understanding about the housing issues and stuff, and this is something that I'm like, yeah, interested to hear what everyone's thoughts are and how what we could do moving forward. Um,
I'm curious if it would at all be possible to set up like, I feel like Hudson and housing is like everybody knows about that as one of the main issues, and similar to the ways that like people are sustaining donors to Kite's Nest and all these another local or the library, or like if there's a way to engage the public like that way, especially with the like statistic that there obviously is a lot of money here, and like people really respond to like, oh, $20 a month, but you know that adds up depending on
Yeah.
how many people you have.
right, right,
I don't know if that model works within like how we're financially structured, but I do feel like that's a very successful model in our town.
right. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think about. Yeah, so basically, wanted to give this to you guys as to like look at, and you can spend the next, between now and our next meeting, like reading it over, thinking about what do you think is most energizes you, or like what do you want to work on? I think always like one or two things is probably all we can handle, so we don't want to take on too much. And yeah, I think those are kind of the thoughts, or like thinking about long-term funding and thinking about other projects or goals you can take on. That's all I really have for today. Do you guys have any things you want to ask or bring up and talk about?
Okay.
Yeah. Pepper, Kelly? Okay, so our next meeting is a month from now, June 10th. We can move it to 5. I'll confirm with Margaret and Risha.
Okay.
You okay? Okay.
But I'll,
You can send me some thoughts.
yeah, I'll try to make it online too.
And I'll send this stuff in the packet just so you have some things to read and think about. And any public comment? No? Okay, Sherry, do you wanna call our meeting to order? To end?
Yeah, that don't need to take motion. We just call the meeting to end.
Yeah.
Yep, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for coming, Lord.
Yeah, thanks, Pepper. Thanks, Kelly. Feel better, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
See you next month. Bye bye.